Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into what is basically a corporate autopsy. We're looking at a streaming platform that absolutely captivated the highest echelons of Hollywood, and yet somehow completely and utterly confused everyone else. So let's dive into it. We're talking about Quibi, a company that promised to completely revolutionize the way we consume media, but instead, well, it became one of the most spectacular, high-profile implosions in modern business history.
Let's just look at the math right off the bat, because the numbers here are truly staggering. $1.7 billion. That is the amount of funding they raised to build this platform. I mean, to put that into perspective, they burned through enough cash to buy a small country in less time than it takes to get a college degree. They raised this massive war chest based on one singular vision, creating premium entertainment that was specifically engineered for a world constantly on the go.
So what was the grand promise for all that cash? 10 minutes. Exactly 10 minutes. That was the magic number. The platform was built entirely around delivering exactly 10 minutes of premium content per episode, which they enthusiastically called Quick Bites. The theory was that Gen Z and busy professionals, they didn't have time for long-form television, but they definitely had 10 minutes while waiting in line for coffee or riding the subway.
But despite that massive mountain of money and the frankly deafening industry hype, here is the most shocking number of all. 6. The platform survived for exactly 6 months before the entire company just flatlined. From the moment it launched to the public to the moment the servers were effectively turned off, only half a year had passed. How does a company with basically endless resources evaporate that quickly?
Section 1. Hollywood meets Silicon Valley. Let's rewind to the origins back in April 2018.
You look at the leadership team and the pedigree is just staggering. You've got Jeffrey Katzenberg, absolute Hollywood royalty, the visionary behind massive hits like The Lion King and Shrek. He basically looks in the mirror and decides he's not just a movie mogul, he's a tech disruptor. Then you pair him with Meg Whitman, a titan of tech governance. We're talking the former CEO of eBay and HP, someone who literally ran for governor. This partnership was pure Silicon Valley catnip. It mixed Katzenberg's Hollywood glitter with Whitman's big tech prestige. But together, they kind of acted like a startup version of Batman, fighting a crime that simply didn't exist, the supposedly terrible burden of having to turn your phone sideways to watch a video.
And because of who they were, major investors just rushed to the table. Disney, Sony, Warner Bros., NBC Universal. Every major studio poured money into this project. They assembled a board of directors that looked like a shadow government preparing for the zombie apocalypse. I mean, these were serious power brokers. The money flowed like water from a broken fire hydrant. But the crucial underlying issue was that these were executives who understood traditional influence, but honestly, probably couldn't tell the difference between a TikTok and a toaster. They were entirely disconnected from how digital natives actually consume free content online.
Which brings us to Section 2, a solution without a problem. Let's look at the actual tech gimmick.
They called it turnstile technology, and the pitch was pure theater. Basically, this feature let you physically flip your phone from portrait to landscape, and the video would seamlessly adjust without losing a single pixel of the action. The executives called it the Edison machine of streaming. They framed it as this holy grail of engineering. But again, we really have to ask ourselves, was having to rotate your phone to watch Netflix actually a problem that needed a billion-dollar solution?
And this brilliantly illustrates the incredible hubris inside the company walls. When investors or early testers asked really basic usability questions like, hey, why can't I take a screenshot of this cool show to share a clip on Twitter? The executives just didn't listen to the feedback. Instead, they gave comically dismissive answers like this quote from a Quibi executive. Because science. Advanced science. Have a great day. I mean, in Silicon Valley, explaining why your paid product is actually better than free alternatives like YouTube is apparently optional when you have that much ego in the room. So, the fatal disconnects were glaring right from the start. They were selling the world on a dream, and they fully committed before ever testing reality. They spent $1.1 billion on content in their very first year. They were paying an astronomical $100,000 a minute to produce these shows, hiring massive stars like Steven Spielberg, Reese Witherspoon, and Kevin Hart. It was like selling tickets to a movie that hasn't been filmed, starring actors who don't exist, based on a script written in crayon. Furthermore, they adamantly refused to let users cast the video to their actual televisions, and they strictly blocked screenshot sharing, which completely killed any chance of viral, word-of-mouth marketing on social media. They built a walled garden that nobody even asked for.
Moving on to Section 3, the Pandemic Reality Check, the April 2020 launch.
The timing here was just an unbelievably unfortunate coincidence.
Remember the entire foundation of the company? The core value proposition was literally content for your commute. Quibi built its entire $1.7 billion identity around entertaining you while you were out moving in the world, waiting for a bus, riding the train, grabbing a quick coffee.
But here's the brutal reality check. Quibi's vision relied on people moving fast and commuting. But the actual reality of April 2020? Global lockdowns. Everyone is sitting on their couches, staring at their big screen TVs. The irony is just staggering. They launched a strictly mobile-only commuting app at the exact moment in human history when the world's commute suddenly became the 15-foot walk from the bed to the kitchen table. People weren't moving fast and breaking things. They were entirely stationary, and they wanted to watch long-form content on their large televisions, which, remember, was the exact device Quibi stubbornly refused to support.
And that leads us to Section 4, the 6-month shutdown, the final chapter.
Within a single week of launching, the app completely fell out of the top 50 most downloaded apps. They projected they'd easily secure 7 million subscribers, but the actual numbers were a tiny fraction of that. Internally, data was being kind of massaged to look acceptable to the board, which, gives off some eerie Theranos Shadow Lab vibes. But the reality was that it was garbage data. Users were downloading it out of pure curiosity, realizing that paying for 10-minute quick bites was just a novelty, and then fleeing the platform in a mass exodus the absolute second their 90-day free trial ended. It was an impressive technical feat built for a market that simply did not exist.
The unraveling was incredibly fast. April 2018, the idea is born and the massive funding rounds begin. Exactly 2 years later, April 2020, the app launches to the public. And by October 2020, just 6 short months later, the company is dead. To their credit, rather than doubling down for years and years on a failing vision, Katzenberg and Whitman looked at the data and admitted the house was burning down. By October, it was just over.
They pulled the plug, shut down the servers, and actually returned the remaining cash to their investors. In the aftermath, the leadership admitted this profound truth. Belief had replaced proof. Charisma had substituted for competence. It was a pretty sobering admission that the power brokers running the show had fundamentally misunderstood the modern digital market. They relied on their legendary industry status rather than actually listening to what consumers wanted. Ultimately, the so-called Edison of apps was dead. Today, Quibi's silent servers remain this glaring warning to Silicon Valley and Hollywood alike. It teaches us a timeless lesson, perfectly captured by this idea. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Quibi claimed to be a revolution, but they never really had the evidence to back it up. It turns out their revolutionary idea was actually just a $1.7 billion way to watch a video sideways.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you to reflect on this spectacular failure with one final question. What happens when executive ego and seemingly infinite funding completely outpace actual market research? Quibi is the ultimate answer to that question. It's a stark reminder that no matter how much money you have or how famous your founders are, you simply cannot force a product onto a consumer who doesn't need it. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpack this incredible story. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.